My youngest son said something interesting the other day. We were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. It's actually his birthday. He'd come home from school and told me, hey, it's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And he knows that's important to me because in part, I've talked about Martin Luther King Jr. most of my life because he's a preacher and a hero, and there's just not a load of those. So I do point him out to my kids. And one of the things that he said about that was that they had spent the whole day learning about Martin Luther King Jr. And I thought, that's really beautiful. I said, what did you learn about Martin Luther King Jr.? And he said, well, a lot of things. What do you mean? And I said, well, I guess why does it matter that you were learning about Martin Luther King Jr.? And he said this, well, Martin Luther King Jr. ended racism. I love that he thought so simply about such a complex issue and try to draw something pure and good and beautiful about that. Clearly, we're still working on racism. But that kind of clarity and simplicity is something that I kind of value and hope for all the time. The truth is, the way that children see the world, in my opinion, comes with one word, and it's the word wonder. The ability to approach the way that a field is full of blue, or the way the sky looks on a particular day. And I think that that's what they do, is that they wonder. They wonder through the world. And somehow, for some reason, we kind of lose that. It's interesting because while questions and curiosity and expression are the way of children, somehow, somewhere, we kind of get it beaten out of us. And I wonder sometimes if that kind of open and free expression of heart and wonder isn't what we have to get back to actually understand, at least in the most basic ways, the hopes, really, of everything. Wonder is really the way that I hope to approach everything in the world. In fact, wonder practice is something that we can all do. It's a powerful piece of who we are. In the Christian faith, wonder practice may be the best definition of worship. I know that sounds a little strange, but the truth is sometimes when we come into worship, we have this idea that we're going to be wowed by some great teaching or some amazing singer or some background or thing that's going to move us, and we're going to kind of become consumers of religion instead of people that practice it. I've gotten a little confused about worship in that way. I suppose the best way for us to get restarted would be as a child, to approach this thing called worship with wonder. I wonder what God is like. I wonder what will happen today. I wonder if this sadness in me could find some lightening, or this anger in me could find some peace, or this joy in me could find a place to share it. I think worship is a beautiful thing. It's wonder practice. It's seeing the world and the moment and the most complex with the eyes of a child. I think also that there is this kind of power in all of that, this practice idea. Yoga and medicine and all these other different places that we hear the word practice. It's something that you do. You practice something so that you're good at it in your life. It becomes like muscle memory, but for your heart, for your spiritual depth, that you begin to be a person that practices wonder of everything that is around you. What if you actually began to look for wonderful things? How is it that there is never the same color green? Green is different everywhere. There's no leaf the same way. There's no any piece or blade of grass that looks exactly the same color. Green somehow is ever changing and beautiful. Astonishing, really. The sun is crisp and sometimes mellow. The light is always different. Water is cool and warm. It's steam, it's heavy, it's light. Children singing, voices, stories, the smell of the home you grew up in. there's this wonder all around. But we have to practice it. Right now, it feels like the world is pushing at us to practice cynicism. Like somehow being good at tearing somebody else apart is a value. And the truth is, anybody can tear something apart. It's easy. You give a toddler a remote control, they'll destroy it. You tell them to put it back together, they have no idea what you're even talking about. Destruction, cynicism, being critical, great, you're good at that. The rest of the world is too. Every piece of social media seems to be trying to tear something apart. I suppose it feels like control, but really all it does is put us into a world that's toxic. What if wonder became the primary force in the world? I wonder who you are. I wonder how you've gotten to this place. I wonder about the world, and I wonder why God has us all in it at the same time. What if that kind of true, pure curiosity of looking for the most clear and beautiful in the most difficult was the thing that we found? Every time we come together and sing, it's a little bit crazy. I mean, singing's crazy if you think about it, especially when you do it as a group, or if you're in a Christian church, it's so awkward. You come here, some people will raise their hands, or they'll cry, or they'll yell out, and you're like, this is just so weird, right? It's not everywhere, but it definitely happens. And yet somehow we have a sense that that is actually a very natural human experience. When you go to a football game, you will throw your hands in the air, you will sing, you will sometimes cry and hug each other and yell out, and yet somehow this is natural over here. Of course we do. You come over here and talk about the things of God, and you hold still. Don't make anybody else uncomfortable. Like I don't understand it at all. There's even words in the Bible that the word picture praise means to raise your hands. We're made for this stuff. We're made to worship, to lift something up in awe and wonder, to be so moved by it that there are no words, that our emotions surface in us with such depth that they leak out of our faces. I mean, it's a beautiful, wonderful life. And practicing it makes us good at it, builds muscles. So sometimes we practice wonder when we don't want to, when it doesn't make any sense at all. We practice wonder at the death of a child, so heartbreaking. I'll never forget being the pastor of a funeral for a child and watching the young sibling, the little brother, walk over with the rose so beautifully and place it in this terribly sad place with a little picture and a hope. I've always been fascinated with how wonder can change things. Are you practicing wonder? Are you experiencing a life where you're looking for it? It's something that we must experience. Our bodies reflect it, our minds engage it, our hearts must take part in it. It's not a matter of whether you will worship. It's a matter of what you will worship. And maybe that's the first step that you take. What are you worshiping? What do you lift up and give your life to? What makes you wonder? Is it something that comes and goes? Is it something that is eternal? What do you worship? What do you sing about? What do you hope for? Does it change the world or upgrade your life? Maybe what we should be doing is trying to shake off all the expectations of the grown-ups and ask a few children to help us know what might be worth wondering about.